Guys, Matt Haycock's here and welcome to another episode of the Matt Haycock Show, where I'm very, very excited for today's episode and today's guest. I know I always say that, but this time I do know it because we've taken about 30 minutes to get set up, and I feel like I've got Charlie Johnson with me. I'll tell you about it in a minute, but I actually feel like we've recorded a whole episode in the last half an hour without actually recording a word. So we're either going to go back and repeat or we're going to tell you loads more great nuggets. But Charlie is a fellow Dubai resident like myself. He is an ex-six-figure earning estate agent from the UK who gave it up, came to sunny pastures, and is now an online coach, seven-figure business owner, and judging by the last half an hour, great, super intelligent guy about business, fitness, and life in general. So, Charlie, thanks a lot for being here, buddy, and I'm looking forward to talking.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for the invite, and hoping to give as much knowledge and wisdom as I can to the audience.
I don't know where we start now after all the conversations we've just been having, but I guess tell me about your life back in England. What you were doing before the Charlie that we know now started.
So it's funny, we touched on this before the podcast began. Like, I was originally an estate agent. By mistake, it's funny how things work in life. I remember, I think it was 18, 19, I qualified as a PT, decided I hated it, went into ski season, came back to the UK, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I remember a friend of mine got a job as an estate agent. I was like, oh, that sounds like a successful career. So I went on like Reed or Indeed or whatever it was, and like typed in, at the time, I was living in a place called Epsom. There was a place called Walton next to it. It was like a little village. And there was a letting agent or something in Walton on Thames. I was like, oh, that must be the one down the road. Applied for the job, found out it was actually an hour away. And I was like, I'll just go and do it anyway. Ended up getting the job there. Worked there for 6 years, became manager there, was earning good money, ended up, that company ended up getting taken over by a corporate company. And when I was there, I was about 25, 26. I got back into fitness and managed to transform myself from being overweight when I was younger. And that's when I saw the moment of opportunity, what was happening with like social media, the Gary Vee influence, listen to Grant Cardone. Like, I drive around in my Mercedes at work between like viewings and valuations and stuff, and just be trying to intake all this information all the time. And that's when the penny dropped, and I was like, okay, I need to set up something to get myself out of this strict 9-to-5 corporate lifestyle where I'm never really going to go anywhere, because I'd already maxed the ceiling of probably earning potential at like 26. And from there, it was almost like a fairy tale, because I was one of the pioneers maybe of like the online coaching and fitness industry, which was a blessing, but a curse in some respects, because at that time, no one had really figured it out yet. So there wasn't like mentors or people like me to go to at that time. But to cut a long story short, that was hugely successful, featured in Forbes Men's Health. Ended up moving to Dubai a year ago, and since then set up another business which is helping other fitness professionals build successful online businesses, which is called Seven Figure Scaling Systems. So we have a podcast for that, share tons of value for that in terms of business. But that's a short 60 to 90 second synopsis of who I am and what I've done.
You give me so many questions to ask already. I'm going to ask you, how did you earn six figures as an estate agent in the UK? Because I find the UK estate agency model so broken compared to, I say broken, I don't know, but let's say so under-motivating compared to how it is in the rest of the world. I mean, somewhere like Dubai, I used to live in the States, where, I mean, now ultimately the vendors of the properties may argue that that they're giving up some of their property price for a high commission for an estate agent, whereas in the UK, 0.75, 1%, whatever it may be, against a 3, 4, 5, 6 it can be in the foreign countries. But also, I guess, where money is, motivation is as well, and you just get a completely different breed of individual. But I mean, I'm struggling to understand anyone earning six figures in the UK as an estate agent.
So for me, I was manager of the entire branch, so I got paid off the whole branch, and I was very lucky in the fact that one, I originally worked for a private company at back in the day. It was called Aston Mead, and that was a fascinating experience as a business lesson, because those two owners like grinded. Like, you turn up at 7:30, they're already there working, they'd be working for an hour, and then they got bought out by Leaders Romans Property Group, whatever they're called. And then you suddenly see the difference between a privately run business by business owners who are super driven, than a corporate machine, and just what a mess it became from that. But I was fortunate, because the previous pay structure I had from the small business then basically been merged by a bigger company. I was getting paid a lot more than I should have been. And in that time, which was funny at the time, is the last 2 years I was there, I was basically getting paid for not doing a lot. I was just running my online business from whilst working in the job.
And let's just talk about that for a minute. When you say about a big corporate taking over, a privately run business. I mean, what, because I've seen it myself. I've also mistakenly been that corporate who's taken over a successful independent business and fucked it up. But what as an employee in that wheel, what did you see as the big differences and the mistakes that they made?
The biggest thing that springs to mind is like the computer say no attitude, in terms of like, I remember pushing to them at the time of like the social media thing, you might want to do something like, why don't we look at doing X, Y, Z, or giving suggestions? And it's always like, no, marketing's doing X, Y. And like, people aren't open to different people's opinions. It's a very structured political game. And I think that's what caused a lot of issues. And I think there was also issues where they start tampering people's pay structures, the way people were earning commission. And if you look fundamentally at like what a state agency is, it's a sales-based gig. So you have to incentivize people to perform. If you start pulling that incentive back, people are like, well, I'm just going to kick back and not going to bother as much. Such as, I know, for example, now I actually spoke with my former colleagues who I'm speaking to for 5 years. They now collectively pool commission. Whereas like, for me, if I was a stage, I'm like, fuck that. Like, I want to earn my own money. I don't want to be part of what everyone else is earning. So like,
it's the same as tips in restaurants. You know, why should you
earn your keep, right?
Tip? Yeah,
you earn your keep. And I think it's respectfully, be careful what I say, but UK culture is quite soft and they want to try and like level the playing field. Whereas I think that's why I like Americans so much, because there's a winner take all mentality. And it's like, if you work hard enough and you're smart enough, the cream will rise to the top.
Well, I mean, like I was just saying, tips and the estate agents pool. I was back in England back in December for my office Christmas party, and I took, I don't know, there was about 20, 22 people at a private room, and it was the usual semi-raucous office Christmas party carry on. But there was one girl in particular who looked after us really, really well, and listen, I forget what the bill was, or what the reason for giving the amount of tip I wanted to give. But I tried to give this girl a couple £100 as a tip. I'm trying to go, no, and she's like this. No, I can't take it. What do you mean? No. I said, please, I want you to have it. She goes, no, we have to put all our tips together. So just put it on the bill. I said, I'm not being funny. I don't want to put it together. I said, no one else in the building's looked after us tonight. You've given us great service. I want to give it to you. She's like, no, I absolutely can't accept it. I'm trying to stick it in the jeans, and she's like pointing at the camera in the top, and she was like, if you really want to give me it, I'll be in this bar down the road after work, you can come and meet me and give me it in there. But it's like you said with the estate agent, like with the restaurants, but then as customers we complain that we don't get the service that we want, or whether that's a service in a restaurant or the service from a business. But also most of the businesses now, from their pricing models, it's always a race to the bottom, and we're deviating around it. But if you look at the estate agency model now, it's always about fixed fees, or then going from 1% to 0.75%, then to £900, then to £250, then to sell it yourself. And how can anyone ever expect any level of service when no one's prepared to share the goodies? And I just think far too often, whether it's businesses or whether it's consumers, we're always trying to push the price down, never think about the value, and everything's a cost as opposed to an investment. Now, you probably see it yourself here in Dubai. I mean, a lot of the wages are so much cheaper than they are back in the UK, particularly when it comes to having staff at home. And I've got a driver, I've got a live-in Mr. and Mrs. etc. And let's say our live-in Mr. and Mrs. They're earning 9 or 10,000 dirhams a month. I mean, great guy. I mean, absolutely fantastic guys. Then when friends of mine ask what I pay them, I tell them like, oh, that's a lot. You could get people like that for say 6,000 a month, 7,000 a month. I say, in English money, we're talking about £400 a month, or £500 a month. Why the fuck do I want to think about saving £400 a month to have shit service? For someone
who lives in your house,
who lives in my house. I actually want to find a way to pay them 15,000 a month or 20,000 a month, and it's just a completely broken mentality.
I think it's just a cultural difference. I noticed that straight away, having traveled a lot more the last 5 years, that like if you go to the US, their cultural mentality is that they rather you went and you tried to set up your own business and you failed, than you stayed in a safe 9-to-5 job and you just played along like playing average. And I think that fundamentally, in my opinion, is I think why Europe and the UK is going backwards a little bit compared to the rest of the world, because we're less aggressive and less willing to take risks.
Tell me, you said you were a little fatty as a kid.
Yeah.
Did you have a fatty defining moment that kind of turned you?
It's funny you say that, because I actually can remember the moment. I was probably like 12, 13. My parents had a house in Mallorca, in Port Andrews, Calorie, I think it was called. And I remember overhearing them saying about like, Charlie's getting fat when you do something about that. And like someone's like harrowing moment as a child in your head. And that's probably something that haunted me until I was like 17, 18 and onwards, and probably why I'm so the other end of the spectrum now. But I think, not that I have children, but I think that's one of those things that you have to be careful sometimes the language you use with people. And also that's why I never really make opinions on people's personal appearance unless someone asks for feedback, because you sometimes don't know where that person is psychologically at that time and where that could put someone.
I know, it's funny because I when I was looking at some notes for this podcast this morning, and I noticed you talked about being an overweight kid. I thought I'm going to ask you what your story is, because I did a podcast about 4 or 5 months ago, and I was talking with a guy called Paul Morton.
Paul. Yeah,
he's a good guy, Paul, and we were recording a podcast and we were talking about like my weight loss moment. And I posted the video, and my missus gave me so much grief over it and made me remove the video from Instagram. I said, "You've used your one life you will ever get in our entire fucking relationship for getting a veto on my social media." When I said to her, "You know what?" I said, "Charlie's got a fat loss story." I said, "I'm going to use it to tell my story again, so I can repost it." But it's funny the things that trigger you, because listen, I've never considered myself overweight, right? I thought, I could always be a bit slimmer, lose a few pounds. But for me, it was always a balance of, do I have the six pack, or do I enjoy the red wine? I'm not fat, so I'll have the red wine, and I won't be, I guess I just won't be too much of an exercise buff. But me and the missus, we weren't in a good place to miss it. But anyway, and last March, April, we're race skiing, and we've been grumpy with each other anyway, and we've been having a shag, and finished the business, and she's there on top of me looking down, and she looks like she's got a face like thunder. I said, "What's the matter with you?" She goes, "Look at you." I said, "What?" She goes, "You're just so fat." I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "You're just so fat." She goes, "You've got a fat face, fat body." I'm like, I know I'm not, not Brad Pitt, but you're going a bit far. She goes, "No, I'm embarrassed to post a picture of you on Instagram. I'm embarrassed to show you to my family." So I think you're going a bit fucking far now, love. I could maybe lose a few pounds, but I think you're going a bit far here. I says, "But you know what?" I says, "I will use that as my impetus to go out there and lose weight." I said, "But be careful what you wish for." I said, "Because when I fucking start, I will finish." And I said, you will find every fucking bird in Dubai hanging off my fucking dick next summer, and you will be furious that you ever told me to lose weight again. And yeah, I don't think I ate a meal for about 3 days after that, and then came back to Dubai, got a personal trainer, started eating healthy, nutrition, supplements, whatever. And listen, as you can see, I've got a long way to go, but I've made some very, very visible changes from before. But it's interesting, what we all use as our motivation, and I guess however personal or weird or fucked up we may consider our different motivations, it's very important to have it.
Well, I think you always have a catalyst. And 2 books I love are Relentless and Winning by Tim Grover, and he talks about in Relentless having a dark side, like that one thing that's in your closet that fucking harrows you. And so that for you at the moment is obviously that's pushing you to lose weight. And it's like everyone's always got something that's driving them, whether it's within their business, fitness, whatever, to keep pushing. Like at a certain point in business, once you've got enough money, like what's driving you to work all the hours? Like there's always something in your head that's driving you. I mean, obviously your business is fitness and business. But let's just talk a bit about, about fitness in business. And even before I'd gone, trying to lose weight, I'd always been into the gym. I'd always, been into ice baths and running. And, I guess my issue was more my nutrition than it was. But I always very much saw the value of exercise and knew that, it made me feel better for the day. Okay, I might not be walking around with a six pack, but, it kind of clears my mind, gets me pumped, and ultimately makes me perform better under pressure as a businessman. I mean, what's your more, technical and educated take on all of that? I agree 100%. I think the biggest benefit from exercise isn't physical, it's the mental. Particular, if you're a very stressed, busy entrepreneur, you're in your head all the time. Like, you lie in bed, you're thinking about work. You're fucking walking around the marina in the morning, you're thinking about work. You can't escape it. But that moment when you're in the gym and you're only like, you got your trainer Jamie killing you, like you're not thinking about all the problems or whatever you have to deal with this day. You're thinking about the bar in your back, like that not crushing you or killing you. And that almost escapism, I think, is very like primal in terms of you feeling your body and your senses and taking you away from maybe some of the other problems in life, I think is the biggest benefit. And again, I think particularly for men, I think the benefit that then comes that you being in good shape is a big signal to the world in terms of who you are. Because if you're in good shape, it shows you've got discipline, you're going to be structured, you're going to be routined, you know what hard work is. Like, people know that straight away. No matter how much money you have, you can't necessarily buy being in shape. You can't just throw money in and it happen. Like, you have to do the work.
It's funny as well. You talk about the people knowing you've got discipline, and I'd never, if you'd have asked me 15 years ago, I would probably never have looked at it like that. But if I now look to if I'm employing someone, say in a salesy type position, but really in any position, if they're fat, you know, I just immediately switch off, because I just think, you know, like you said, if you haven't got the discipline to want to lose weight, how have you got the discipline to pick up the telephone and smash the telephone? And secondly, you know, if you're happy with yourself for looking like that, then, you know, you've obviously got no self-respect, standard, attention to detail. I'm not saying we all have to walk around, you know, looking like they've just come off a bodybuilding stage, but, you know, if anyone's more than 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds overweight, you know, for a prolonged period of time, then no discipline, lazy, and it has to impact on both parts of life, all sides of the life. And the other thing I was going to say, when you talk about exercise, a friend of mine, a guy called JP de Villiers, don't know if you've ever come across JP. He always says, you know, show me a person, no matter how much they may not like exercise, that doesn't feel more energized after a workout than before they've done it. And, you know, it's just basically impossible not to feel more energized. And for me, that's always, you know, very much how I feel with the exercise. And also with things like, you know, I love my ice baths, I love the cryotherapy room. People always say to me, you know, well, what are the benefits, you know? And I say, look, I can tell you the 7 or 8 medical benefits that, you know, that come on the tin and that they say it does, you know, to do with recovery or this or that, the other. I said, I can't honestly tell you whether or not they work, but what I can tell you is after 3.5 minutes in the ice bath or 3.5 minutes in a cryo chamber, I feel fucking amazing. I'm buzzing. I'm ready to take on the day. And if that is the only benefit, then I will accept it.
Cryo is an amazing one. So interestingly, for like hypertrophy building muscle, it's been shown to have a lot of negative impacts on that in terms of recovery. But
if you're trying to build muscle,
but it can actually aid in terms of burning body fat. One thing I do find fascinating with it though is what you said, and that's why I love it. I wish I had one in my building. Is I literally would go every day. Is I'd go first thing in the morning just because it lights your brain on fire, like almost like dopamine. As soon as you come out, you just feel insane. And you can think so clearly. It's that like fight or flight response it triggers in your body. Like, you know what you mean when you come out, you just feel super clear-headed. I can't really think of anything else that changes that. And also, if you're in a bit of a shit mood or stressed with something, the 2 easiest ways to change your state are one, something like an ice bath or cryotherapy. Because as soon as you go in, you're not thinking about anything else other than like, this is fucking cold. Or the other one is exercise. Like, so if you're in a really bad mood, one of the best things you can do sometimes is just go work out for 15, 20 minutes. And you often find that just like flip the switch and take you out of whatever you're having a problem about.
I mean, it's funny how, you know, I guess how attitudes to things change over time. And, you know, I mean, we're very much in an era of a much more health conscious, you know, fitness conscious culture than we ever used to be. I mean, like, you know, I've got 10 years on you, but I do feel like, I mean, I feel like I can remember my 18, 19, 20, 22 like it was yesterday, but I do also think it's 20 years ago, and it feels like a complete another era then. And, you know, to talk about how if you're stressed, go for a run or have an ice bath feels almost like completely laughable to what the era was 20 years ago. Like, oh, you're stressed, go on, get a few pints down as well, bang a line of gear up your nose or something, you'll feel better in no time. And it was never my thing anyway, because I mean, the drugs has absolutely never been my thing, but even, I do like a drink, but if I'm stressed, I think getting drunk I'm just going to ultimately end up being more stressed. It's like when, you know, people go, I'm really stressed, you need to go on holiday. Well, I don't need to go on holiday, because if I go on holiday, I'm going to then spend the whole time on holiday thinking about the problems I haven't solved, and I'm going to come back a week
You've got to deal with them when you get back, right?
with probably more problems because I've ignored everyone for the last week. But yeah, you know, when you look at the cures or the kind of resolutions to stresses, I can't really think of anything other than exercise that is a genuine cure to a problem, whereas everything else is either a masker, or if anything, you know, it might make you feel better in the short term and ultimately so much worse in the long term.
Well, I think a lot of people try and use things like drugs, alcohol, food, sex to almost like numb the pain of whatever the issue is.
We could do sex. Yeah.
whatever the issue is or the thing they're stressing is, trying to like escape the reality of the problem. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Is the biggest thing that most people struggle with is if you've got a problem like you're overweight or you've got business stress, people don't want to deal with things head on. And it's like analogy of like swallowing a frog. You've got to like deal with whatever the big problem is head on. If you don't know how to do it, find someone to help you do it.
Let's talk about your business. Let's talk about the online coaching. How did it start and how did it grow?
It's funny looking back because I remember sitting on my sofa when I lived in Kingswood in Surrey. We used to charge like £40. I used to charge £40 a month for online coaching. I used to make like shitty Word documents with people's diets and have to manually type it out.
Was this like one-on-one online coaching?
Yeah, one-on-one. So that escalated quite quickly after probably 6 to 12 months of doing that, mainly because I was just churning out results for people. And fitness is really easy for anyone listening to this. If you've got a fitness business, it's the ultimate results-based business, right? So like say if you were a client of mine and I helped you drop 10 kilos and you're suddenly like swanning around your boat with a six pack and taking photos of social media, people are going to be like, what the fuck has happened to this? How has he done this? So you would end up getting piles of clients or referrals off the back of you. So basically all your clients are walking around with referrals, you share them on social media. It's basically just being really good at your job and understanding basic marketing can then grow. But what I did and I still do to this day is focus on really pushing value content. We spoke a lot about Gary Vee already, but I like the expression of thinking about making content that is educational but has utility. So you teach something someone can actually go and use that day and they're like, holy shit, that worked so well, I feel so good. That's this free thing. I wonder what like paid stuff's like. I think the more people have that mentality when it comes to building their online business, the quicker they will scale. I think the big mistake a lot of people make is they try and run until they can walk, and they'll look at me maybe at chapter 12 when they're still at chapter 1 and try and overcomplicate the process rather than just stick at the beginning in terms of being really good at what you do and think about using clients to acquire more clients. The sort of thing that Alex Hormozy would talk about.
When you were saying that, I was just thinking Hormozy,
Yeah.
But back to the basic principles. There's an expression of, give the secret away for free and sell the implementation. And I guess, nowhere is that probably more true than in fitness, because, ultimately anyone can learn any workout they want to learn from a book, from YouTube, from Google, from Instagram or whatever. But I guess, ultimately, with the personal training, it's someone to hold you accountable or someone to push that 12th rep out of you when you can only, get to 11, or someone to make you turn up when you would have stayed in bed. How do you work with the online coaching? Because is it one-on-one? Because I know you've helped like over 10,000 people. I think you were saying 12,000 people before we started recording. I know it's your goal to get to 100,000 people. But are you doing that on a one-on-one, or is it more like an app and teaching people on a group basis?
It's a combination of both. So we have an app we deliver our programs on. So we build customized training programs and nutrition programs for everyone. So there's videos you can watch on how to do the exercises. But the reason we get such good results is you already hit the nail on the head earlier on in the podcast where you said that you start to focus on your nutrition, you start to see results. So where most people get it wrong is they don't understand that only 10% of the calories you burn every single day are actually from exercise. So therefore, logically, if your goal is to lose fat, which is probably most people's goal who are listening to this, that's where you need to spend your time is trying to get that area right. So it's basically simple math. So what we help people do is focus on really nailing down that and then keeping people accountable and making sure they're adherent to it. Like people mistake a lot of things when it comes to fitness, thinking it's an all or nothing mentality, where the reality is it's only an 80% consistency, and you do that consistently and you will see results. So we do that by a couple of different ways. We do one-to-one calls with clients on Zoom, like they can jump on calls with the coaches. We do like Loom video feedback where the client will update photos, weights, and then they'll get a video feedback in terms of, okay, this is what you're doing, this is where you're stuck, this is what we should change. So it's more of a 24/7 coaching process rather than just you turn up for a PT to babysit you 3 times a week just to make sure you turn up to the gym, which is, I know, the route some people go down, but that's almost like putting a plaster over the real problem. And what we focus on doing is getting people to open up in terms, I actually have an issue at night that I go and eat a tub of Ben & Jerry's at 9 p.m. Is there anything you can do to help me come around this? Yes, why don't you try eating Halo Top ice cream that's only 300 calories instead of 1,000? There you go, 700 calories a day. You still get to eat some ice cream. It's those simple solutions that compounded can help people, and it's just getting them to have that trigger moment to understand that the big thing for them to get the results they want is just changing their mindset. And the reason people don't get results long term is they don't believe that they can actually get results. And I feel my superpower with what we do with fitness training and the business coaching is helping people fulfill their potential by getting them quick wins to get them confidence and momentum.
I mean, I think that's the same problem in so many fields, isn't it? You know, whether it's fitness, whether it's business. I mean, I was talking to a podcast guy recently who was saying that the stat is that I think for everyone that starts a podcast, you know, the majority of people finish at episode number 7 and never get any further. But I mean, I know when I used to do my kind of annual fitness journey, because you know, us fatties, we talk about annual
January.
Yeah, well, it was never something January, but what I'd always do is I would go to Portugal in kind of October, November time and do a 1 week juice cleanse, juice detox there, and I could normally drop up to, I don't know, 8 to 10 pounds or something during that time. And I know, you know, someone will argue, well, it's completely unsustainable and it's, you know, it's not healthy, it's this, that and the other. But my argument it always was, I'm not saying it's a great way, but I just know that it kicks me off with a good blast. And that's the kind of psychology I need to know that I've got a good immediate win, because otherwise, if I'm just starting normally and losing 1 or 2 pounds a week, or you're making micro muscle gains a week, you know, you're going to give up, well, not necessarily, but let's say I would probably give up by weeks 4 or 6 or 8, you know, before I've seen it. When it's like that old image of the gold digger, isn't it? Who's not knocking, and he's been going for 30 days, and he's that far away from the gold. But yeah, I mean, what is your I guess number one mistake that people make when it comes to trying to lose fat? Because I mean, there's so many different diets out there, from keto to, you know, to carbs versus protein, all these. I mean, are there good things in any of these diets and bad things, or is there a different secret or a different answer?
So the secret to fat loss is one thing, and it's calorie deficit. It's as simple as that. As you burn more calories than you consume every day, you will learn body fat.
But does it depend what's in the calories? Because, you know, you can have, I don't know, for example, I actually order a lot of my food here on Kareem or Deliveroo, and I used some of this morning called, you know, cake. It's spelt K-Cal, like, you know, there, and they give you the breakdown of what's in the food. And, you know, you could get something that's two different things, are both 400 calories, but one's, let's say, very high fat grammage, very high carb grammage, and smaller protein, and the other one's the flip side around, but they're both 400 calories. I mean, what's the difference there?
In basic essence, it doesn't really make any fucking difference. So, like, what I'd say to everyone is that if you look at the hierarchy of what's going to have the biggest results, calories is always going to win over what you call macronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fat. So if you focus on making sure that you get that number correct, you will see progress. So when it comes in terms of like the best approaches for the individual in terms of what you can actually do consistently and stick to that will see you lose weight and be in a calorie deficit. So, for example, to break that down and give a really good example, there was a lady in the US, Suhi something, and she did a bodybuilding bikini prep diet, and she ate a Mars bar every single day on her diet to prove that you could get like competition lean, eating basically whatever the fuck you want. And she actually won like an IFBB pro card, eating a Mars bar every day for like 16 weeks to prove the point that it doesn't really matter what the food is. There are certain caveats to that I would employ. So one would be that the most important macronutrient you need in your body is protein. So everyone should aim for at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight a day. So the reason for that is that muscle repair, satiety in terms of feeling fuller for longer. And then from there, basically what we do is we use what we call a metabolic priming approach, which is trying to get your body to utilize carbohydrates correctly. So if we look at something like a ketogenic diet, the ketogenic diet works because it puts you in a calorie deficit, because you're removing one food group essentially off the table, so you eat less. Now, people say ketogenic diets makes you burn more fat, which is correct, because you're eating more fat, so your body's going to burn more of the fat you're eating, because you're going to eat a lot more fat on a ketogenic diet to get the calories. So it doesn't really make sense. And what happens when people start a ketogenic diet is they drop weight very, very quickly. This is because of 2 reasons. One is because if you think of most carbohydrate foods tend to be quite voluminous, like rice, pasta, bread. You stop eating that, you tend to eat less, your weight will drop. Secondly is your body will be depleted from glycogen and also water, because you're not eating the carbohydrates. So you can easily drop a couple of kilos just from that in the first week, but that's not actual fat loss. So as soon as you start to eat carbohydrates again, your weight will come back up again. And that's where people need to understand the difference between losing weight and losing fat. So the best advice I'd recommend for everyone in terms of some basic principles for fat loss, make sure you're in a calorie deficit. To work that out very simply, if you ate 2,500 calories every day for a week, if that was stable and your body weight's not changing, I'd probably drop that 500. Try and do an extra 20 minutes of exercise a day. You should start to lose weight. The foods you eat, you can pretty much eat whatever you want as long as you're within that allowance, but try to have a gram of protein per pound of body weight. And you can eat carbohydrates in the evening, you can eat carbohydrates first in the morning. It almost doesn't really matter so much at an overview level what time you eat your food. There is certain areas where this can be improved, but people worry too much about like the nuances about like, what fucking creatine should I buy? It doesn't matter. Like, they're all pretty much close to everything else. So if people just focus on adherence, what will fit their lifestyle, like for you, for example, ordering in food, that's what you need to focus on.
You mentioned creatine. I mean, what is your view and take on supplements? Both, I guess, your over-the-counter proteins and your creatines and your vitamins and your minerals, and then your testosterones and your growth hormones and that kind of stuff as well.
A really good subject. So the name of supplements is the giveaway is a supplement to healthy diet. So a couple of core supplements everyone should take from a longevity point of view. Number one would be fish oils, so amazing for healthy fats, reducing inflammation in the body. Inflammation is the number one cause of disease, so if you can bring that down, chances are you're probably going to live a bit longer. Secondly, I would highly suggest everyone use creatine. So creatine basically increases almost stored energy within muscle cells. There's not really any side effects for it at all. Super cheap.
How do you take it? It's just because I've actually got some at home. I've never opened it. You put a
so
spoonful.
I would recommend everyone takes 5 grams a day, just fairly consistently. If you take it around the workout, so before training, during training, or after training, it's also been shown to have improvements in cognitive function, how your brain works. And there's also been research to say it helps you burn an extra 50 calories a day, which does add up after a while. Creatine also is found naturally within red meats, but it'd be very difficult to get enough from red meat to be able to fulfill what you need. Those are probably the two, and like a multivitamin to fill any holes in your diet. But there's a lot of other things we go into with clients laid on top of that. But the only way to really know what you need is based upon blood work, because everyone's body responds differently and has different deficiencies and different needs. So even if you look at where you live in the world, right? One of the best supplements everyone can take, particularly if you're a guy, is vitamin D, because there's a big impact in testosterone production. So if you live in Northern Europe, you live in Scandinavia, UK, Germany, somewhere like that, chances are you've got a vitamin D deficiency because you're not in the sun.
Sunlight, yeah.
So if you live in Dubai, you can have less of that issue because you can have glorious sun time, you're spending all time.
That's what everyone
says. Yeah, exactly, right? So those things have a big contributing factor. When we look at pharmaceutical drugs, one of the biggest issues in the world right now that's very much swept under the radar but is coming a lot more mainstream, particularly in the US, is low testosterone in men. So testosterone levels in men has been tanking for like the last 50 years, pretty much since World War II. And this is something that can literally change men's lives. So if people are suffering with low libido, depression, low confidence, getting your blood work done and seeing if you have low testosterone, if you get that back up to range by working with a doctor or seeking third-party advice, that will literally change your life and also your body composition. In terms of, you mentioned in terms of growth hormone, that is a compound that people use a lot for anti-aging, which I think has a lot of benefits in low doses. Same in terms of even for fat loss and muscle building.
I'm going to carry on from your testosterone comment about being swept under the carpet and lift the lid on my numbers as I guess an instructional point for people listening or watching this. As I started taking a testosterone, well, I was going to say supplement, I started taking testosterone last April kind of time. And so it's one of those things, as laymen, we never understand anything, do we? And we associate testosterone to shagging. And it's as simple as that.
Or aggression.
Or aggression. Yeah, that's true. You see a grumpy person in the gym, it's like, oh, he's taking his roids this morning, or something. But as a non-gym goer, you think, do you do plenty of shagging? Well, then you haven't got a testosterone problem, and that's where my head was at with it with before. Not that I've particularly been never thinking about taking testosterone replacements or additions, but some people were talking to me about it last year. So I went to get my bloods done over here, and I mean, again, everyone's got their own scale, but on the scale that we use, where I do my blood work, testosterone, your recommended level, well, not so much recommended, but your minimum acceptable is like 280. Going up to 800, and the way it's explained to me is that, let's say at 800 you're like a healthy 21-year-old guy,
peak performance,
yeah,
which is what you want, right? You don't want to be fucking average.
At obviously at 280 you're probably starting to get to issue territory. My first test last April time was about 420, 425, something like that, which obviously from a black and white, medical numbers, it's 50% of where it would have been when I was 21. Which I guess if you want to be, I don't know, soft about it, you say, well, why would it not be that? You've naturally tailed off over the years. And I guess as an individual, I never would have said I had an issue because, like I said, I've certainly got no libido issue, and didn't think I had issues elsewhere. So I started initially with the with the gel, and that took me over 3 or 4 months. That took my levels up to about 650. And then after the gel, it was the old jab in the ass, which then took me up to 1,500 off the scale. Now, obviously, the missus will joke about it as soon as I start putting the gel on. I mean, I'm pinning her up against the wall by the neck 5 times a day. But libido aside, and like I said, I never had any libido issue, but yeah, obviously it naturally makes you more horny. But all the other effects of less tired, bouncing out of bed in the morning, even if I've gone to bed at 2 and I'm up at 6, with so much energy, having more energy to work out, wanting to work out more, doing 2 workouts a day, even if that's just weights in the morning and a run at night, and then obviously reading up on testosterone. And understanding that it's necessary in muscle making, it's part of how your fat's distributed in your body, etc., etc. You start to see the benefits. And it's funny. And I go back to England, and your mates who see me back in England, like, fucking hell, you look so different. Either I've seen you with your top off on Instagram, or we'll see you in the flesh now, and you're looking 10 years younger. I said, thank you. And obviously everyone always says to me lately, oh, you look 10 years younger. I said, but the truth is I actually feel 20 years younger. And these are the things that I'm doing. And they go from immediately being interested in what I've got to say, fuck that. I'm not, why would I take that? Or why would I do this injection? Or why would I take that supplement? Well, don't. But you've just asked me, what you can do to lose weight, and you're telling me that you're depressed and you've got low libido and you're lethargic and you can't be arsed with your missus and your kids are making you tired and you can't get off the couch, and I've given you a quick easy fix to sort it. But I guess it's that I don't know what's the word, whether
black sheep.
Well, I was going to say public perception or of all these things that that they're so bad. And I always say to my guys, I said, you've known me for 25 plus years. I won't go near a fucking drug or anything like that. So for me to be advocating for this stuff, you should listen to me for a bit, surely. And ultimately, we're not putting anything into our bodies that isn't already there in the first place, and it's mad as well, because the people are telling me, oh, fucking, I'm not having a testosterone injection once a week. Well, I mean, you don't hesitate to start sniffing a bag of gear on a Saturday night off a dirty toilet seat, but you've got an issue with a nurse administering some testosterone. And like I say, I'm sure. If I was to be getting involved in another business over the next 3 or 4 years, 100% it would be something in the kind of anti-aging / medical / fitness space, like that. Because I think in the same way that even with women, if women were having Botox 20 years ago, they were like the one-off. It was like, fucking hell, she's that one that's got the trout lips. And then,
they're all fucking got it now.
Yeah, then 5 years ago, every bird's got it. But, if a guy's done it, it's like, what, that guy's done it? Whereas now it's, obviously guys aren't doing it as much as girls, but, they're not far short. But I guarantee in another 3 to 5 years, every guy will be Botoxing and fillering as much as the girls are. But more importantly for this conversation, it'll be as normal as taking a vitamin C supplement to have a testosterone injection or a growth hormone supplement. And 100% that is.
What's even funnier about it, just came to my head what you just said. People are happy to have a random vaccine shoved in them that in my opinion, don't fucking need. Yet something that's already in their own body, they're not happy to do. And I think this is where people sometimes need to learn the skill of critical thinking, and the amount, like, my parents have a lot of health issues, and I try and advise them sometimes. They don't fucking know sometimes. And then their doctor will say something like, that's not right. And then 6 down the line, they're like, yeah, you were right. I was like, because this is a thing that I think everyone is so married to the idea that doctors, the NHS, whoever is like gospel and they must be correct. As a reality, these people learned from a book that's probably 50 years old, and these people often aren't thinking for themselves. They're just regurgitating information that they've retained rather than looking at the information in front of them and making an informed decision. So this is one of the key things we help with a lot of men who come to us who are in the situation with low confidence, self-drive, sex drive, like less drive in life generally. It's like, this is something you probably want to look at and get your blood work done to see if this is actually an issue.
And taking what you've just said there on a slight business bent as well, that, ultimately for me, that just shows the importance of how we need to learn as much as we can about every single thing. Well, obviously, certainly anything that we're going to have exposure to, but the more the merrier, because everything that kind of has a knock-on effect to something else. And you just said yourself that people believe what the doctor says, and you think, well, he's a doctor, he must know more than me. In the same way, they go to a lawyer, if they go to an accountant, they think, oh, he's a lawyer, he must know more than me. And I've never ever met a business owner who doesn't think that their lawyer or their accountant is the best accountant in the world. And it's always because, they've either saved them a couple of quid in tax, but, any competent accountant or lawyer should have been able to do that for them. But the reality is, the reason they think they're so good is because they know something that you don't know. But like anything, like football players, like personal trainers, or like doctors, there's good and there's bad ones. I think the biggest mistake people make in business is not learning as much as possible about every single discipline that's in there. Maybe not enough to be good enough to be able to replace all the people, but certainly good enough to be able to have a conversation so that people aren't pulling the wool over your eyes, whether that's people internally in your organisation or people externally, like lawyers, accountants, or whatever external consultants you may use. And taking it back to what we were just saying, it's just the same with doctors. Okay, I'm not saying you're going to learn enough to be able to replace the knowledge of that doctor and to be able to go and do his job for him, but surely you want to be able to have enough to make to ask some critical questions or to decide when you need a second opinion.
The beautiful thing you said there just reminded me of my favourite saying. It's a genius doesn't have great answers, he asks great questions. And that's the most important thing people need to think about. And it's the same thing if I can stand on stage and talk about fitness businesses, whatever, and people can ask anything and I don't care because I'll be able to answer it. If you ask someone a question on something in their specific field and they don't know what the answer is, that's when you probably should question what's going on. So to give an example, I recently went for fertility treatment to have sperm frozen to have kids when I'm older, so there's not any issues. The doctor was trying to lecture me about taking protein powder, about how it was going to ruin my kidneys, but he was probably 10 stone overweight, and I was like pot kettle black in terms of scenarios. And I think sometimes you just have to learn to just take everything with a pinch of salt, people say, and sometimes see through what is right and what is wrong.
Well, it was in a fitness, well, not fitness, but health and longevity book I was reading lately that talks about stem cells and stem cells replacement.
Which Ben Greenfield's one?
No, it was actually the Tony Robbins one called Life Force.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
I'd never even heard the concept of stem cells before, and having mentioned it to a few people now, there's a very, very micro subset of the people I know who are kind of in that space. But it's now made me excited to have a baby on the way, so I can go and steal her stem cells and make sure that I can live forever. But yeah, I guess it's like whether it's medicine, whether it's business, whether it's anything, it's all these things just hammer home the importance of always looking forward, not looking backwards, and finding whatever the next big thing is.
I think the way I try and look at it, and people we work with, is like, I want to be like Peter Pan, who never ages. Like, you don't want to be in a steady decline. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people making is, you see a lot of people when they retire, right? They stop working, they just fucking drop off a cliff. It's like, and this is something people need to change their perspective, is that fitness isn't a finite game that it ends. You don't work out for a week and then you never work out again. You don't get in shape and then you just stop. Same with business, it never really ends. You have to, the point of the game is to stay in the game so you can keep continuing. And I think that's where people just need to change their perspective and understand that they need to maintain their body for the rest of their life, for the next 100 years, not just blow it up in 3 years and just abuse it and then have to reap the repercussions from that for the next 40 years afterwards.
Well, I'm sure there will be, if we go forward 10 or 20 years, I'm sure that the older people of in 20 years' time will look materially different to where they were. Well, never mind 60 years ago. Even today, you always used to look at Sylvester Stallone and Arnie as that peak of physical specimen, who now even in the 70s are still training like mad. But I guess they were the complete anomalies in an era where everyone was a fatty and everyone was drinking booze and stuff. So I think it will be interesting to project forward today's culture of, My daughter is nearly 17. I was telling you before we recorded this, and I was talking to her the other day, and people probably laugh thinking that she's lying to me like every kid was. But I was asking her the other day, I was saying, how many of your pals smoke? And she was saying, none of them. I said, what? She means proper cigarettes. I said, yeah, proper cigarettes. She goes, not one of them. She goes, there's plenty of vapors. She goes, but none of them smoke. Now, 25 years ago, when I was her age, I've never had a cigarette in my life, but every single one of my mates smoked. I mean, some of them at 16 years old to the point where they'd be doing 20 a day, and how the parents had no idea. I've got no idea. But the youth of today is so much more health conscious than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly 25 years ago. So yeah, it would be for me fascinating to project that forward and see what a 65-year-old does look like, because again, I feel I'm kind of in that hybrid age bracket of knowing that. When we used to talk about 65-year-olds, when I was a kid, they were fucking old. They were old. They were knackered. You would never even think of being in those terms. I mean, even someone of 42, and I remember when I'm 16 or 17, I think 42, fucking hell. I mean, they're absolutely finished. I want to be 25 for life or something. But I mean, whether it's just psychological or whether it is, living in a different era, I feel younger now than I did 20 years ago. I'm not saying I'm excited about being 65, but I certainly don't have any of the fears that I used to have 20 years ago about aging, because it's for me, just feels such a more different and exciting time.
I think it's a new challenge, and it just shows the right decisions you've been making and how that's paying off for you. Even though I spoke to someone about this the other day, that my joints and body actually feels better than it did when I was 27, because I actually look after myself more now in terms of the way I work out, cryotherapy, saunas, like sleeping properly, like all these small things like compound over a period of time, even if it's just little 1%, that has a huge impact.
Talk to me about the 2 Comma Club, because when I was prepping our notes for this, and I noticed you're in it, I thought, we were talking about people we liked before this podcast in terms of listening to. We mentioned Hormozy, we mentioned like Gary Vee, but Russell Brunson, I think, is a guy that whether it's an act of the ultimate marketing humbleness or whether that really is what he's like, I do find him a fascinatingly intelligent and humble in equal proportion guy to listen to. I mean, have you met him actually?
Briefly, so I've been to Funnel Hacking Live 2020, and it was an amazing experience, and it's like a cult. Is the only way I can really describe it. When you go there, like, it's insane. And you suddenly realise how weird and big the online marketing space is, and people selling all sorts of random shit. But I'm going to the other one in September to get an award there. But they have an amazing platform. I think similar to Hormozy, he's very clever in the way he pitches his words. I don't know if you've read his books, but his books in terms of marketing are phenomenal.
I've read them about 3 times, all of them, and I'm currently rereading .com Secrets at the moment. But I mean, that they are like for anyone who's not read these. If you're listening or watching this, we're talking about .com Secrets, Traffic Secrets.
I can't remember. There's a trilogy of them.
Yeah, it's a trilogy, a red one, a green one, and a blue one. Yeah. And you must buy them, because they are, I don't know, in equal proportion, the simplest, but also the most important and intelligent, timeless marketing lessons. I mean, yeah, they're written in the context of e-com and .com, but they're just absolutely timeless, sales and marketing classics that, anyone should be buying and downloading. But sorry, go on.
I think what I like so much about him is just the principles they push you can apply to any business. So almost like you were saying, it doesn't have to be an online fitness business. It doesn't have to be an online business drop shipping surfboards or whatever. Like, you can apply that same methodology to anything. So one of the big things he's a big advocate of is the hero's journey. So being like the star at the front of the business, you practice what you preach, which is almost like what I said earlier in the podcast, is like, be a really good coach if you want to be a fitness coach, be in great shape yourself and get really good results with clients, you'll get loads of clients. The same as like, you wouldn't go to financial advice from someone who's fucking broke. Like, you go to someone who's successful, and there's that saying that success leaves clues, and I think that's very much what they do with their business. I mean,
do you do your funnels yourself? Or
I used to. So actually, this is a really good topic, and I fucking love talking about this. So this is like back in the grind of like 2019, 2020. I think when I first left my job, I did everything. So I was like, I learned to run Facebook ads, make funnels, email marketing, build websites, like did all my social media, everything. And for me, I think that's where so many people go wrong. And you referred to it earlier in terms of talking about lawyers and accountants, is that a great example of this is Facebook ads, right? People try and hire and delegate Facebook ads to someone, but they don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. And the person's going to talk to them about click-through rates, frequency scores, all this sort of stuff. And it's a different language. And if you don't understand something, just to like a basic fundamentals, you can't delegate it to someone else because you're not actually going to know if they're doing their job correctly, or you're not going to know what CPM should be or anything. So for me, whatever business anyone has, one of the key things is just to understand everything to a certain degree. If you can't do that, then you probably shouldn't be in that business. Like I've always wanted to have a software business, but I don't know fucking write software. I don't know how to write codes. It's like, it's probably not a good idea. So stay in your own field to an arena, which is why the three businesses I have all sort of overlap each other in my own field.
So who does your, so you use ClickFunnels,
Yeah.
do you? And do you have like an outsourced team or someone who works for
So
you?
this is the beautiful era we live in now, is that you can hire people all over the world. So we've got one of the biggest mistakes I made in business last year is I hired a tech team I was paying $20,000 a month to for like 3 months. They're a fucking disaster. I now have a Filipino who I pay $5 an hour to, who basically does the same thing, who is amazing, gets everything done, and super, super easy. And the key thing is identifying someone who's got the potential to do what you want to do, and make sure you actually give them a clear process of like, this is how it's to be done, this is how it needs to be fulfilled.
Well, listen, it's been great talking to you. I know, as I said when we started, we'll be between 30 and 60 minutes. I think we're already over 60. I could go on for hours and hours. So I hope we get to do a round two of this.
100%.
I mean, before you go, leave me one marketing or business or fitness secret that everyone should abide by.
I'll give you one feature. Fitness secret, the easiest thing I'd say is, if you want to lose weight, do two things. Track what you weigh every day and track what you eat every day. That will give you a really good understanding in terms of how your weight changes in terms of what you're consuming. So just use like MyFitnessPal, track for roughly what you eat, weigh yourself first thing in the morning as soon as after going to the toilet, and you'll understand that. That will help you lose weight. Business perspective, I say social media, the biggest mistake most people make is A, not consistency and not turning up, and B, is not giving value to the audience in terms of a way to help them. So I remember one of my early mentors to me said that your content makes you come across like a narcissistic prick, because it was just like ab selfies in the mirror or whatever. And I was like, I see where you're coming from. And that big pivot really helped me to change my business and change my life and help me fulfill and help a lot of other people. So that's the big thing, is in terms of like Gary Vee talks about in the book, it's like jab, jab, right hook. It's like give, and then sell, rather than most people I think at the moment just try and go for the sell before giving any value first.
And I guess talking about social media, a nice segue into, we'll leave the show notes on this afterwards, but where can people find you on social? How can they download your course, but how can they sign up to you as a fitness trainer?
Fitness training wise, check me out at Charlie Johnson Fitness on Instagram, same on LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, pretty much everywhere. And the business side of things, we are masterminds called 7-Figure Scaling Systems. So if you check that on YouTube and Instagram, that's on there as well. So feel free to reach out for anything you need.
Awesome, Charlie. It's been a pleasure having you here, mate. Guys, I'm sure you've enjoyed listening to that or watching that as much as I've enjoyed talking to Charlie, and we will definitely be dragging him back for round two. As always, I'm the Matt Haycox. That's TheMattHaycox on all things social. If you've been listening to this as an audio version, we have the video versions on YouTube, and if you've been watching it on video and you don't like seeing my face, you can have me in the car on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you want to listen to your podcast. So until a future episode, thank you very much.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
That's good. That was awesome.
Thanks.